Meantime, a group of Democratic members of Congress traveled to Louisiana yesterday to visit foreign students Mahmoud Khalil and Rumeysa Ozturk in a pair of federal detention facilities as both face potential removal from the U.S. Video captured agents last month apprehending Ozturk, a Turkish national with a valid F1 student visa, near her home outside Boston. Khalil is a former Columbia University graduate student who was also arrested by ICE officials. The Trump administration maintains they're each a threat to national security for their activism against the Israeli war with Hamas in Gaza. Massachusetts Senator Ed Markey was part of that visit and joins us now. Thanks for being with us, sir. So Trump officials say Rumeysa
Great to be with
Ozturk's
you.
visa was revoked because she allegedly engaged in activities supporting Hamas. She's a PhD student at a university in your state. What's your understanding of why she was detained and targeted for deportation?
Well, the only public statement which has been made is that she wrote an op-ed in the Tufts University undergraduate newspaper about her views on a resolution that had passed in the Tufts uh, government undergraduate government. So that's the accusation against her, that she exercised her free speech to be able to have an opinion on an action that was taken by the student government at Tufts University. That's protected under the First Amendment of the United States: freedom of speech, freedom of the press. And beyond that, there have been no accusations. There's been no evidence of a crime. They haven't even alleged a crime, and yet they whisked her off of the streets of Somerville, Massachusetts, where Tufts University is located, moved her to Vermont, and then to Atlanta, and then to a remote part of Louisiana, where Congressman Jim McGovern and Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley and I visited her yesterday. And thus far, they have presented, from the government's perspective, no evidence that in any way could be constituted as a crime. And that is a violation of the Fifth Amendment of the United States. That is the protection under due process to have the evidence presented against you. And they have not done that either. For 4 weeks, she's been in prison. No charge of a crime, no evidence presented against her. And yet she sits there in prison wearing an orange jumpsuit without any accusation that has been publicly made by the Trump administration.
What's your understanding of the Trump administration's motivation in moving her to that facility in Louisiana, despite a court order maintaining that she remain in Massachusetts? And beyond that, under what conditions is she being held right now?
Well, she was in Vermont when she was moved, and obviously the Trump administration is forum shopping. They're trying to find the most conservative Circuit Court of Appeals in the United States, which is the Fifth Circuit, which is where Louisiana is located. And so, to the extent to which they've moved Ramesa 1,500 miles away from Somerville, and then 100 miles further out from the New Orleans airport, they seek to distance her from her family, from her friends, from her attorneys, from any support system that could be provided to her. And it's all a part of a pattern, which, by the way, is the same thing that they did to Mahmoud Khalil, who is also in prison down in Louisiana in one of these facilities. And we visited him as well. And I would say that she obviously had a terrifying experience where six undercover law enforcement officers swept her up and into a vehicle, put handcuffs on her, and then as she was being transported, ultimately she was in chains as she was arriving in Louisiana. No charges made against her, despite all of that, and despite her asthma attacks that keep recurring in prison, despite the less than ideal conditions in these prisons, the lack of easily accessible medical care or nutrition, or even extra blankets at night if it's too cold. She still has an indomitable spirit, an indomitable spirit. And and it was just a privilege to be able to meet with her.
You know, there are those who maintain that no one is entitled to a student visa. It's a privilege granted by the US government, and the federal government should reserve the right and the authority to revoke or deny that privilege as it deems necessary. What do you say to that argument?
Well, what I say is that we're the United States of America, and she's entitled to due process, and she is entitled to have the evidence presented against her, and it has not happened yet. There's no provision that says that Marco Rubio, as the Secretary of State, can just designate someone like Ramesa, and all of a sudden she can be whisked to a prison as though we're in Russia or Belarus with no charges made against her. No, we're better than that. And that's why 250 years ago in Massachusetts, we began the American Revolution to create a constitution which would provide protections, freedom of speech, and protections under the due process Fifth Amendment clauses that have guaranteed that our nation is one of laws and not of men, and that man cannot be Marco Rubio or Donald Trump. It must be the laws that are enforced. And right now, this Trump administration is in complete and total disregard for those laws, and the humanitarian consequences for Mesa and thousands of others. The dignity which is being compromised is absolutely unacceptable in the United States in 2025.
Senator Ed Markey, thank you for your time this evening. We appreciate it.
Great to be with you. Thank you.